So what a campaign and what a day yesterday for the Prime Minister, Julia Gillard. Well, she will join us live on the program from Darwin in just a few minutes. But first, we'll see what the panel made of yesterday and the front page treatment in newspapers right around the country. Kerry-Ann Walsh, the meeting with Kevin Rudd certainly led to one damaging headline in the Telegraph, in the first edition of the Telegraph.
Yes, in the first edition. Desperados, they didn't grin and they couldn't bear it. And the photo is very grim, very dismal for both of them. Kevin Rudd's looking like he'd prefer still to be on the operating table. Julia Gillard's looking down and she has a grimace. But I don't think that in fairness did justice to the way Julia approached that meeting. Certainly in the Julia Gillard approach it, certainly in the TV that I saw last night and then in the lead up to it for those tragics who were watching it unfold. Julia Gillard was actually trying very hard to make eye contact, but it certainly wasn't something that Kevin Rudd was prepared to engage in.
Yeah, that shows up in that photograph there that one of them was making an effort.
One of them was making an effort.
Yeah, I must say, I saw, there was only 70 seconds, wasn't it? There was very little that was allowed to be filmed. When I saw it last night, I thought, OK, it's not friendly, but I thought perhaps the best they could get. It reminded me a little of that appearance in the last election. Remember when John Howard and Peter Costello did that interview in their shirt sleeves on the commercial TV, and the ones that, you know, I'm a Holden guy, I'm a Ford guy, that one, it looked really uncomfortable.
Well, that had the same discordant note too.
It did.
They were trying to present themselves as a team, which was beyond unbelievable.
But I did, when I saw the images in the newspaper today, I thought, that wasn't quite the impression I got.
And George, no matter how it's presented today, they had to give it a go.
Well, they had to give it a go. I mean, on the scale of Rudd versus Christina Keneally earlier in the year, it wasn't that creepy.
Oh, it was friendly.
It was friendly compared to that one. And, of course, Rudd's numbers were sliding from that moment on. The thing here for Julia Gillard is that the dignity of the Prime Minister's office has been stripped before our very eyes. Tony Abbott doesn't want to run as an alternate Prime Minister. He just wants to make this election campaign about Labor division. And Julia Gillard has been monstered by her side in a way that I've never seen in an election campaign before.
Well, let's go on with that now, Fran. And the second edition of the Telegraph now led with the handshake from hell.
The handshake from hell. I mean, Mark Latham, is it possible a Latham handshake has just blown up another Labor leader? I don't know, an election campaign. It was incredible. Watching this last night on the news, I just couldn't believe how menacing his appearance was and what bad form. Talk about a poor sport. I just thought it was aggressive. I thought it was really unfair on Gillard. She was trapped. There was nothing she could do to get out of it. But I was struck by the aggression in Mark Latham's behaviour towards her. And it just was, I think the commentary I saw last night, bad optics. Well, bad optics, all right. Worse for Latham than Gillard, I thought. But nevertheless, it just adds to this story. How many Labor leaders can come out and cause trouble in this campaign?
And even before that moment, he turned up as a reporter, allegedly, and then gave a kind of an impromptu doorstop. Have a look at this.
I don't think it's a distraction. It's a real campaign. I'm a real person.
Is Rudd a real
This is a real nursing home.
So you're happy to...
There was a real meeting this morning that none of you got to see.
Now, George, to me, I mean, this is... Channel 9 hired this guy. To me, it's like the political equivalent of sending Brenda Favola to the Brownlow. It's kind of introducing the football show mentality, that kind of boorish, misogynist sort of culture to politics.
Channel 9, I think, and don't take this as partisan comment, viewers, but Channel 9 think that they're part of this election campaign. There are three men here who are not standing for Prime Minister, Kevin Rudd, Mark Latham and Laurie Oakes, and each of them think that the election campaign is about them. Now, would this have happened if the competition were between two men? I'm not sure. I think we have to unpack this and see what we are actually seeing with our own eyes, which is a lot of blokes trying to monster up a woman.
Well, certainly his behaviour to her looked like that monstering up, and it's clearly just a stunt. This guy has no place being in a media pack, allegedly as a journalist, and answering questions from journalists. No place whatsoever.
I mean, it was honestly
stunt.
like something out. It was some sort of Monty Python type. You know, it was an extraordinary thing where journalists couldn't work out who to interview, whether they hung around like professional journalists or whether they interview this bloke who has clearly got a very poisonous agenda.
But if this was a chaser, it'd be one thing. He was not being that. He was taking himself seriously, allegedly asking her serious questions. Why don't you do do an interview. Well, I'm sorry, she's done plenty of interviews with Channel 9.
And a journalist who makes the question about himself. I mean, you know, where was he? He was circling around like some sort of a vulture, you know, loitering, lurking in the background.
Yeah, look at me, look at me.
Look at me, look at me.
You mentioned the tragic who watched that doorstop interview yesterday. I thought it was one of the most abysmal performances I've seen from the media. I mean, we're judging politicians all the time. But it just seems to me, watching these doorstops that are getting increasingly pathetic, I think, in their value, is that people who would ordinarily, when they're not covering election campaigns, would be chasing fire engines, are out on the campaign trail.
It's the way campaigns have developed, because it's so hard to cover everything if you're on the road. The senior correspondents aren't going on the road because they're trying to get balance in their reporting so they can see both sides every day. If you're on the campaign, it's hard not to be captive of that. You're in a bubble, you can't check what's going on, it's very hard to get that. So you don't have the heavyweights on the campaign trail asking the questions. And politicians from all sides are getting away with things, there's no doubt about it.
Because they made a big deal yesterday of the fact that they wouldn't let a reporter in on the meeting between Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd. This was to be a campaign strategy meeting about Kevin Rudd's involvement. I can't recall the last time they invited journalists in on those meetings, but they made a big deal of it.
And it was a they were between a rock and a hard place, really, how they were going to manage that yesterday. Once it was out there in the ether and it developed into this huge event, courtesy of some strategic leaks, as usual, a week or so before Kevin went rushing off to hospital, they had to do something. They had to have some sort of photo opportunity. But at the same time, perhaps they should have just had it over the phone or a teleconference or something where, I mean, I know it had to be a face-to-face one.
It had to be a face-to-face. I think they should have fronted up face-to-face myself. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And just in terms of the media pack and the questioning, I mean, to defend my colleagues, it's not always like that. I think the weekends are particularly seems to be a bit of a lean time for the questions.